Hello and welcome to Realm News. I'm thrilled to have you all here today on the show. And before I dive into grilling you all with questions, I'd like to say that I'm sorry to hear that your teammate Sharom Ali, is that correct, could not make
Mhm.
it. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that they couldn't make it. Maybe another time they can come on the show. But I would like to first go around and introduce you all who are here today to the audience before we talk about SunBloc One and all that encompasses that. I would like to first start with you, Dr. Simon. And you go by Bart here. I'll be going by Bart with you on the show. Um, from what I understand, you are the director of Milieux, TAG Lab, which TAG is an acronym for Technoculture, Art, and Games. Research Center co founder and professor in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, and the design lead and mod choreography. Am I missing anything there, Bart?
That's pretty good.
Okay. Those are a lot of titles, and it sounds like you're an extremely busy person. Could you please tell me a bit about your academic background and how you came to co-found the TAG Lab?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a sort of trained as a sociologist of science and technology. But early on, I got into the field known as game studies. So this would have been easily 15, 20 years ago. I was one of the first sociologists to study kind of gaming culture in MMOs. So we were studying EverQuest back in the day, and looking at how player social dynamics amongst players and things like that. So I got deep into game studies and became a kind of game studies scholar, and then eventually I joined up actually with a group of artists in the fine arts department who were sort of making games, and we created the research center Technoculture Art and Games, which started really small about 15 years ago, but is now huge as sort of student interest in games sort of like exploded. And we are the one place on campus that you come to, and it's mostly for graduate students, so less for undergrads. But basically, if you are doing anything related to games, design, studying, anything at all, you would come to TAG.
Wow, that is interesting. I actually, when I was looking at your guys' website, I was quite jealous that I didn't go to university at in Montreal at Concordia and Milieu because what you guys do looks super fun. I the Minecraft Block calls this research creation, blending, making, and thinking. How's SunBlock stretched your own understanding of what games can teach us about the real world, Bart?
Yeah, well, so there's a lot to unpack there. We'll have to do this as we
Okay.
move along. I mean,
Yeah, that's fine.
essentially, so I started as a sociologist studying people who play games, but it wasn't long before you kind of learn pretty quickly that there's a lot to learn about how to play games by making games. So slowly but surely, we merge these two kind of things together. So the idea of research creation is essentially to combine sort of practices of making and sort of artistic creation, if you like, but it comes down to all the different levels. So computation, but you'll see with SunBloc One, we're doing like hardware systems design. We're also doing game design, and we're also doing sociology at the same time. So all these things are kind of bundled into the same kind of project. They're not separated and siloed. So even in a game development education, you rarely see sociologists and communication scholars or historians joining dev teams to sort of create games. You have, your artists and you have your programmers and so on, and that's about all that's there. Here we combine everything. And what that leads to is not necessarily making games for the market, but in fact, it's research itself. So game making isn't about making games that we're going to try and publish, or even for getting a career in the game industry or something like that. It's actually part of sort of liberal arts research, basically. And so that's kind of how TAG works. We're not unlike other game programs, which are sort of kind of making devs for the industry or for indies. We're really treating this as sort of core if you like, cultural research. And SunBloc is an extension of that. So we've been working with Minecraft for a long time, not so much as a game, but kind of as a platform for making things, right? And SunBloc is the extension of this sort of our idea of making in the game to extend beyond that to the if you like the infrastructures for playing the game as part of the game.
Wow,
That
no,
makes sense.
that makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot. You guys are doing a lot. No, I do want to talk more about the mods a little bit further into the show, so maybe we can go into that a little bit further because that's super interesting too. And I did see how that Sunblock's an extension to a lot of this. As you were saying, I find it very fascinating. But first, I'd like to move on to Rosie and get to know you a little bit for the audience. I've been in communication with you directly. You're the first person that reached out to me when I asked to get you guys or your team on Realm News. So I really appreciate you reaching out to me. Thank you for that, Rosie. And I have here that you are a graduate researcher and community management and do the map designs. Could you go ahead and tell me your chief study first?
Sure. So in my part of my master's program, I'm doing a master's in sociology. Bart is actually my thesis supervisor. My area of research is, I did my undergraduate in women's studies. And so my area of research for my thesis is gender and how gender is sort of expressed and perceived in multiplayer online games, particularly through voice chat. You know, if you're in an online game and the only connection you have to someone is the sound of their voice, what kind of assumptions are you making about that person? And, how do we compose ourselves? So not actually Minecraft related at all, but, I can't put all my eggs in one basket. I do have other interests. I think that's my main research.
No, that's super interesting. I did want to ask you because I read here that you or you mentioned in the email gender negotiation in online gaming spaces, and I thought that was super fascinating because when I was working on my master's, part of my research was in gender studies for TESOL and teaching in the classroom. So that was before I dropped out. I never finished my master's, unfortunately, but no, I thought that was really intriguing that you do that research. Could you tell me what's your role on the team for MindBlock?
So what I do with SunBloc is, I have myself down as a community manager. So what I focus on really is sort of wrangling the people to play. We have a Discord, so I'm getting the Discord set up to bring in, not just players that we'd like to have on our SMP that we're going to launch, but also, scholars, people who just think the project is cool, people who want to talk about what we're doing, the idea of eco gaming and solar energy. So one of my responsibilities is to find those people, bring them into the fold, and get them talking to each other.
Wow, that's really interesting. So you do a lot of networking then.
Working on it. Yeah, which is how this came to be, right? So.
And before I move on to Quinn, could you tell me how do you see sociology pairing well with your Minecraft research?
It's hard for me to separate. Really, Bart laid it out really well. Sort of the natural transition of sociology to game studies, because what's really exciting for me is, as much as I love the games and I love playing them, I love people, and I love seeing what motivates people, how something like play fits into our lives, and how it is a platform for community building and making connections. Minecraft is a great way to do that. Multiplayer Minecraft is a really fascinating phenomenon, and seeing how people come together and engage with each other on a Minecraft server is something pretty special, I think.
I can only imagine, and I can only imagine the data pool It's a lot of, what, 200 million players?
It's a big sample.
No, that's a big sample. Yes. No, that's very fascinating. And thank you for sharing all that. I'd like to now move on to you, Quinn. I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. I'm going to ask you the same questions. What is your chief study?
My chief study, I'm currently doing an undergraduate in marketing, so there's nothing specific really. It's just all of marketing, learning how to interact with clients, learning how to sell to people, learning how to just conform to people's needs and bring them to where they want to be, really. And honestly, I think that's the most like I enjoy doing with that sort of like studies part of it, but it's not that related to Minecraft. I guess in our project, when we need to promote our project to the public, that's where my marketing degree is going to come in handy. But right now, there's two separate fields in my head. I've got my gaming industry part where I've been playing Minecraft for 10 years, a whole decade of knowledge coming into this project. And then I've got my business side where I'm keeping that on the shoulder just in case I need it.
No, that's really interesting. I'm sure you can find a pairing for those two.
Oh yeah, it's coming for sure. Just
Yeah.
eventually.
I'm sure. And could you tell me your role on the team?
Yeah, I'm more of a map developer, level developer, and also I'm working on the narrative side. Something I find in video games, like I enjoy the casual arcade game where it's Call of Duty, League of Legends, something you can hop in. Maybe there's a ranked game mode, and you really try hard for those 15 to 45 minutes, and then you call it a day because either you win and you want to play more, or you lose and you don't want to play more. But something that really strikes me for video games is storytelling. I find that a great game needs a great story to go along with it. And so I'm working with not just building the levels, the maps, and the setting up the points of interest across the world, but also creating the dialogue for the NPCs, the non-player characters that will be in the world, and guiding the motion of the players, not necessarily by railroading them and sticking them on this track, but giving them the general sense of direction of where they might want to go.
Wow, that's interesting. And are you and Rosie both, because I think I have here, both narrators, right? Or map designers?
Yeah, we both work on it hand in hand. I think we're the most hands-on because Minecraft is not a game where you can build external resources in like a 3D program like Max, I believe, or Blender, or you can't import that much. Everything in the game has to be built within the game. So to be a creator, you have to be a player.
Okay, understood. I've never built a mod myself, so that's interesting to hear. I've talked to a few modders. Jiggerball Productions came on the show, and that is just way above my head how you guys do all that. It really is. I'll play them, but yeah, building them, that's something separate. I'd like to now move on here. Now that we got to know you all a little bit, I'd like to move on to one of your projects that you are currently engaged with or have been for a while. I'll ask you. I'm referring to SunBloc One. And first off, I just want to tell you that I got all my information about SunBloc One from an article by you, Dr. Simon, dated back to November 12th, 2024, titled "What is SunBloc One?" And I got a lot more info from the links provided by Rosie in our email exchange as well. That article you wrote, Dr. Simon, I first saw on Blue Sky also, and I think that's how I actually discovered you and your team's work. Could you please tell me
So
and my
Blue Sky
listeners? Yeah, Blue Sky. Yeah, I've been following you ever since I opened up my account. I think you were one of the first 10 people because I had no idea that Minecraft was in academics, and it kind of just, I was like, wow, I need to get these people on my show because Realm News pairs real world
cool.
with the game. So it was just I don't know, just it kind of blew my mind. I was like, wow, this is kind of like the lottery if I can get them on the show, So could you please tell me and my listeners about SunBloc One and what's its mission, purpose, and goal? And I'm going to ask you these questions, whoever feels fit to answer them. There's no real order to this. Sorry. I've never had 3 people on the show, so whoever feels they're best inclined to answer, go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So I mean, there's kind of, I'll start, but there's 2 pieces of the puzzle, so I'll let Rosie and Quinn probably talk more about Gaia's Riddle, which is the mod pack we're developing and the game experience that goes with SunBloc One. So the key thing to start with is SunBloc One is a Minecraft server. It's a modded Minecraft server. And to say that is to say kind of nothing exciting at all. But that's the point. I mean, it's just a server. However, it is a server that is powered on solar power. So it's powered by a battery, which is charged by a 100-watt solar panel. It's just sitting outside of our research labs in Montreal. And I mean, it's, we can talk about the server itself, but the whole key to this whole thing, I think it started when, because we've been working with Minecraft for quite a while, and we have a number of different servers that we run. We have a server that we use for teaching a course. We have servers for doing experimental work. We've run other SMPs. And I think at one point I was looking around for a company that was interested in sustainability as part of its mandate, and sort of if anybody was advertising for green server space. And there's very, very little. There's some in Europe, but generally speaking, I was kind of surprised. And then I was sort of thinking about this, and there is a famous project your listeners might be interested in called a Solar Protocol, which is a project out of NYU, which is basically a bunch of solar-powered web servers. So they run on Raspberry Pis, so it's very easy to power them with solar power, and it's a bunch of networked web servers. And basically, the system is set up in such a way is that wherever the sun is in the world, that's the web server that's up.
Oh, wow.
And I played around with that for a while, and it's a very, very cool project, and the community that's built up around that of the server operators is really fun and interesting. But I realized this kind of for the user, it's kind of limited what you can do with a web server, like read documents. It's like, okay. There's no reason why you couldn't do the same thing with games. And so that's when we started thinking about powering a Minecraft server. And of course, the actual, if you like, technical needs for the server are compared to the client are quite low. So it's a very easy first step to say, okay, let's solar power a server. So we got ourselves a mini PC, learned all about solar circuitry, which turns out there's a lot more to know than you think there should be. Messed around quite a bit and got the thing working, and realized this is super interesting, but what's even more interesting is if we could make this matter for players, right? Because when you're playing Minecraft on a server, you don't really think about the server, how it's powered or anything. It's either up or it's down, and that's all you care about. And when it's down, you complain to the server operator and whatever. But we wanted to do a project where, the server itself became more present in players' experience. Not in a frustrating way, but in an intriguing, exciting sort of way. So the first thing we developed was a set of mods, essentially, to allow the data that can be collected off of the solar system, essentially. So we're collecting data about the voltage, the current, power consumption, the battery levels, and so on and so forth. And we'll just put that in a HUD in the game, and give players a real-time sense of how their server is running. And what immediately happens under that situation is the most important bit of information you start to realize right away is you need to know how much time you have left on the battery before your server goes down.
That'd be important.
So suddenly you're watching the battery level, which is conveyed in terms of the voltage state of the battery, right? So the higher the voltage, the more charge you have. As the voltage drops to a certain point, the server will shut down. So one thing that becomes interesting right away is that even when there aren't any players, your server world is using power.
Oh, wow.
Right? So this is interesting to think about. So think about all of the Minecraft servers all over the world, however many thousands upon thousands of servers are that are always on, with nobody in them.
Do you have a
drawing
number
power
of the drawing power?
There is no I mean, so our server, which runs on a very small mini PC, idles we purposefully built it on with a very low idle. So we're only drawing about 3 or 4 watts, which is very, very little. So we chose a PC, mini PC configuration that would have a very low idle draw on purpose. But, you know, if you're running these things on much more powerful computers, you're drawing a lot more power. You could be drawing 30 to 50 watts potentially, depending on what the machine is doing when nobody is even there. Okay.
Wow.
And that's per machine. So the whole point about this is it all adds up, and we can talk about the relative kind of power costs of gaming versus other things in a bit. But this was an important kind of first step, is sort of noticing, hey, you know, when you're not on a server, there are implications. The next thing that becomes really interesting is then when you're on the server, it turns out that depending on how you play, it will have an effect on how much battery life you have.
Okay.
And this was an important insight, because what we do know is that most of the computation that goes on in Minecraft happens on the client side. So it's the client that is doing most of the processing when you're playing Minecraft. The server doesn't do that much, but one of the things, and this is usually the point that drives it all home, one of the things that we discovered really early on is there's a massive fluctuation in the power consumption between walking in the game and flying in the game.
That extremely fascinated me, and I had never thought about that before in my life until I read that article. Could you elaborate on that, please?
We didn't realize it either. I mean, I think we were going through testing, and I was like lighting shit on fire, and I was like, we were like dropping mobs in everywhere to see like if there would be any fluctuation, any like change in the power consumption. The server's untouched under those things. That's all on the client. But as you know, right, the server that is loading the chunks as you move through the world. So the faster you move through the world, the more the processor has to work to load those chunks faster. And you know, even with an Elytra in vanilla, it's possible to fly too fast, and your world isn't loading fast enough, right? Because the server can't keep up, especially if it's running other processes or something like that. So we do know, right, that the CPU then is running at max. So it's basically drawing the maximum voltage that it can possibly draw, which is draining the power very fast. That translates into this experience, right? If you fly, and if you fly too fast, and it's especially noticeable when you're exploring. So if you're flying, doing Elytra flight or other kind of modded flight in unexplored, so new chunks are being loaded or being generated, so they haven't pre-generated, then you are max taxing the CPU. And if you have a multiplayer server and you have everybody flying off in different directions, then you're really putting the CPU under pressure, and we'll go from like a standard draw of, say, I don't know, 8 to 10 watts on a normal walking around server to suddenly 20, 25, 30 watts draw. So there's a huge spike. And if you sustain on the battery size that we have, if you sustain that activity for any real period of time, you'll drain out that battery super, super fast.
How many players have you guys maxed out in an SMP to test this? How fast it would drain?
I think we've had like maybe a dozen people.
I think our max was 15 to 20 when we had everybody hop on.
20.
Wow.
It was somewhere 15, like maybe low end 15, high end 20.
We were doing load tests with about... Yeah, so I mean, we were doing these load tests to try and measure what size of battery we were going to use. Because this is the other thing when we're doing the game design, and I guess Rosie and Quick could talk about this a little bit, is like, the key is, you know, we could solve the problem by having more panels and very large batteries so that, you know, no matter what you're doing, you wouldn't really notice. You could fly as much as you want. The battery will absorb all that. But what we wanted to do is make players deal with that problem.
Yeah. And
have to make a choice. Do I fly now or do I walk now? And in order to do that, we have to pick a battery size which makes that meaningful. Right, so it turns out we started with a 50 amp hour battery. that was too small. We basically only get like 3 or 4 hours of game time off of that small battery. So then we started
Wow.
moving to higher and higher batteries, and now we're sitting at 120 amp hours, which will basically, if uh, if there's no sun in Montreal and the battery's not recharging, you get about 2 or 3 days of
That's
play,
pretty good.
as long as you're not flying. Yeah.
Okay. Is
Once you
this
start flying, that drastically cuts, but that makes it super interesting.
that is super interesting. I saw that you mentioned that what is SunBloc article in the conclusion part of it. The purpose of the project wasn't to teach people about solar power, low carbon computing, or energy transition, but rather you call this quote unquote infrastructural intimacy rather than literacy. Is that what is is that what you're saying right there about how you wanted to create these
A
limitations
little
for
bit. So
people?
the idea is that, so minimally we are teaching people about, solar power, how
Hmm.
voltage work, how current works, even some basic math. It's pretty easy to convey with Minecraft, but that's kind of been done before. What we really want to do is make that meaningful for players. So it's
Hmm.
not a lesson in how solar power works. No, no, no. It's actually part of your game. So you're moving from this sense in which you understand how the solar power is related to the battery, is related to your server, and now you actually have to make choices in the game that
Hmm.
depend on that. So this is the move from literacy to intimacy. Now you're feeling it.
Yeah.
I want to talk
So
about
you're in a
modes.
relationship now with the server that you wouldn't otherwise have. You have to care for it. You have to take care of that server now, or you won't play, essentially.
Gotcha. And you mentioned something, Rosie. You wanted to talk about mods,
Modes,
modes.
actually. So I guess sort of the next step up from the, do I fly or do I not fly? Once we get people thinking about like, oh, my actions have consequences and are going to impact how other people are able to play on the server. Um, that's an area that we play in a lot
Hmm.
with Minecraft research, is sort of that um, multiplayer negotiation. But also something that we've been playing around with is switching between power saver mode for the server and performance mode for the server.
Hmm.
So if we have, if we're playing, generally we'll play on power saver mode. So we'll have a longer battery life, but performance is pretty poor.
Hmm.
Things can get pretty laggy if there's a lot of people on, if there's a lot of mobs. It can get kind of frustrating. You're lagging out and you place a block and then that block's not there anymore and you fall to your death over and over again, or there's skeletons shooting at you and there's no way you can hit them back. And this maybe can be a little bit of a segue into the mod pack that we're building,
Hmm.
because we're trying to put some stuff into this mod pack that will make people really want to play in performance mode. We want to make it so that it's more functional in the game to crank up the CPU, turn on performance mode, drain the battery, but get through that boss fight really effectively.
No, that's really interesting. I do want to get to the mod, and you're referring to Gaia's riddle, right?
Guy's riddle.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Sorry,
Yes, Guy's riddle.
Gaia's riddle. Yeah, I have a couple questions more about Sunblock, and then I'll shift gears over to that. Um, I wanted to ask here, what's the? I know you mentioned battery sizes, and you guys were trying to find the right battery because you didn't want to be that you could just play infinitely, just like connected to a regular power grid, but you wanted to set some limitations. But besides that being a technological hurdle, what's the most surprising technological lesson or lessons that Minecraft has thrown at you all in making this project?
Minecraft in general, or
Or just this project in general? What was the biggest technical hurdle? Maybe I worded that question a little bit wrong,
oh no, that's okay.
and I can come back to that.
No, that's okay. I wish Sharon was here because I
Yeah.
feel like he
They
would have
were-
some really good answers.
If I'm not
So
mistaken, but sorry, go ahead.
no, no. I'd say, we're working on two sides of the technical side. So one is on the hardware side, trying to develop a system that is like, also, by the way, the other part of this is that it's meant to be DIY. So at the end of the day, we want people to build their own solar servers. So we're trying to find the most cost-effective, simple configuration for producing the most robust kind of experience in terms of these power things. So we're developing actually lots of tools for measuring power, for communicating those power measurements, and that's all related to sustainable computing and is actually of interest to computer scientists who are sort of working in this area. So I have a lot of great conversations with computer scientists who are interested in sustainable computing, even in Microsoft, where they're working on this quite actively. They're all interested in sort of how we are thinking about making those things playable, because they're interested in what people might care about when it comes to sustainable computing. Then on the modding side, there's a whole new set of problems, which has to do with, basically, I guess it's a bit ambitious of us, but we believe, I suppose, we are intuiting that there's a bit of a genre of gaming here that's a bit unexplored. And so essentially, if we're able to make the data available to modders as an API, it means that people can make all sorts of mods using that data. So the HUD is just the beginning, but imagine, if all the mods that you could create using the dynamic data that's coming off of the server. So a good example is this one that Quinn is helping to work on right now, which is a solar powered sword, right? Which simply is a very simple concept, but yeah. So I mean, let's basically take a sword but have the damage fluctuate with the voltage that is coming off the solar panel in Montreal. So when it's sunny in Montreal, you can take out the bosses, but if it's cloudy, you're in trouble. And that's changing in real time. So I think Sharom has got it set for updating every 10 seconds or something along these lines. So literally, you could be fighting, you could be in the middle of a fight, then the cloud comes over in Montreal, and suddenly your sword's completely useless.
Clever. I like that. That is really clever. I was actually going to ask you about that solar sword because I read about it. I was like, what is that? What is this solar sword? That sounds pretty cool. No, that is way neater than I thought.
So the key to all that, I mean, just to make a long story short, is like, so when you're a game designer, your best friend is, if you like, dynamic data, right? So it means that you have a kind of space to play in which there are choices that can be made, and players have to become aware of something in order to make an interesting choice. And the great thing about the weather is it's basically locally unpredictable. You don't know, right, when a cloud is coming over you. There's no way. I mean, what's cool is it'll be neat if our players have to look at the weather forecast for Montreal to make some decisions about what they want to do. That'll be very cool. But even if they do that, even if they realize they're facing a week of rain, right, and basically, they have to tell each other, nobody fly, nobody, like everybody, like stay put so that we can play this week. That will be cool. But but even then, inside of that space, you'll have clouds and other kinds of changes and other fluctuations in the voltage and things like that, which can be leveraged for gameplay. Super interesting space to play in for programmers and modders, especially.
That is super interesting. Who
I'm getting a call from upstairs. I have to step out. Is that okay?
No worries.
Can I just turn off my camera here?
No. Yeah, you should be able to just click that button and it'll just turn that off. And
okay, I will return, I hope.
Okay, no worries. Unfortunately, I don't think I can pause this, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you guys some questions if that's okay.
Yeah, Bart's not here. We can say what we want.
So I think this actually might fall towards Quinn. Are you did you design the HUD for
No,
this? No, you
no.
didn't?
My expertise, that's more like Sherome and our extended members of the team who aren't here right now. But
Okay.
Sherome, I believe he made the solar Minecraft mod, and that is this mod that it reads the data from the solar panel and through
Mhm.
like the solar converter to the battery, and then it takes that and it through, I don't know, maybe adding it through a website and then converting it to Minecraft data. It just plops it on the screen, and we have just the raw values of how much is charging, what's the battery at, and estimated time. But something cool about the estimated time is that it's not like a linear, like you have 3 hours left. At a
Mhm.
certain point, when you drop to, I think it was like under 50% battery, it like the draw really ramps up and it's exponential. And so
Oh,
when you
wow.
think you have an hour left, you might have 5 minutes. And so we'll
Wow.
be like in downtown Montreal, we'll be watching the graph, and then we see the graph spike. And so we tell everybody on the server, hop off now, it's going to crash, it's going to shut down, everybody run. So, like, if you're in a compromising spot, you're fighting the Ender Dragon, you're fighting a monster,
Oh,
you're
wow.
hovering over lava, you gotta find safety in the next 30 seconds or it comes shutting down.
That brings a different level to Minecraft gameplay. I enjoy that.
It's important because a lot of like gameplay terminology is with like the diegetic and the non-diegetic. So like what's in the game world and what's not in the game world. You have your
Mhm.
character and you're walking through a scene. That scene, the mountains, the plains, the houses, that's in the game world.
Mhm.
But your pause menu, your home screen, that's outside the game world. And a lot of our talk is about immersion. Like how do like a lot of today's games are photorealistic. You need to be
Mhm.
immersed. But even when you're immersed, like the soundtrack, your character doesn't hear that. That's you hearing it.
Mhm.
So it's a breach between, it's like the bridging the gap between the diegetic and extra diegetic. And when we have things like the solar mod, the solar HUD, where we can see what's going on outside that's affecting our game, when we have the sword that dynamically changes damage on a dime if a cloud passes overhead,
Mhm.
that's another instance of these two worlds colliding that shows that yes, we could be immersed in the world, but we're also realizing that what we're playing with has actual consequences on something outside of the world. And the consequences of that has consequences on us while we're playing.
Yeah, and
So it's this back and forth.
we're working on bridging that a little bit more too. I think the solar HUD is getting further developed. One of our colleagues, Andrew, has been doing a lot of work on the design of that, of turning it into an actual object in the game.
Oh,
So
wow.
right now it's just like a HUD you can toggle
Mhm.
that just like flashes some numbers in the upper left hand corner of your screen. But we're trying to tie it, yeah, like further into the game world to make it something maybe your character can hold and like look
Wow.
at. So, bringing information about what's happening in downtown Montreal into the Minecraft world. And there's sort of like feedback.
That's really interesting. Would that object be craftable or just something you'd find, you think? That's
I don't
intriguing.
remember if we decided on that. I think
We
it's
did not.
probably something you'd spawn in with since it's
Yeah.
pretty crucial to the play.
If you lose it, you could do a /kit and then it gives you back the item or
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
Using the console within the game, you just give it back to yourself. It
That's
seems like
really neat.
something that would be like super detrimental if you didn't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you might want to know what's going on and how much energy you have left in your world, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I would like to move on where Bart kind of left off on the DIY before we get into the modding and Gaia's riddle. I saw that you have or had documents, I believe, available on GitHub. There is a link there, schematics, relevant code, and documentation such as that. Could you please tell me more about these design documents? Are they open to the public for people like any John Doe or Jane Doe to download and build themselves? And I'm sorry, I'm going to throw another question. Does this take a lot of technical like knowledge? Do you have to have like, for example, I've never built a computer or anything. Could I assemble this?
Uh-huh. I mean, I think the goal is to eventually have documentation that's thorough enough that you can. We're not
Hmm.
quite there yet. We're still sort of working out the issues with our own setup. We've been doing a lot of stress testing, figuring out which battery is the best to use, figuring out which panel is the best to use, trying to find a good middle ground between, an experience that, like Bart was saying, you can feel, but also one that isn't so frustrating that it's not worth it. We have had some inquiries from some people. I got a message from a school teacher in the US who said, this sounds really great. How can I build one myself? I think we're talking with some other schools across Canada, a lot of high schools who seem really interested in putting something like this together for their students. And so that's the direction we'd love to head. We're not quite ready. We're not confident enough in our own setup that we're prepared to be like, here's your kit. But that's definitely where we're heading. And I have learned a lot about solar energy and electricity and engineering throughout the course of this project. That's definitely not where my expertise is. So I think there's a wee bit of a learning curve, but yeah, definitely the goal is for people to be able to assemble this with minimum knowledge.
No, yeah, I was curious about that. And also, that was a question I was going to ask you, because I believe at the beginning of this, it was mentioned that you guys assembled all this together. And I was going to ask, do you have engineering backgrounds? That must have been a lot of learning, honestly. That's interesting in itself that you were able to just put this together. Hat off to you.
It was a big work from Bart and our team member Sharon, who they just spearheaded the creation of this together. They did a lot of work on building the actual physical construct, and we're like doing everything within it.
Wow. How long has this project been going on?
I joined it in April of last year, and it was already a thing. They had already done the testing of the walking versus flying, so
Okay.
I think maybe 2 years.
Yeah, 2023, I want to say.
Okay, gotcha. And how long do they plan on keeping it running, or do you guys plan on doing this indefinitely, just keeping it going? See
if
how long?
Successfully, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's got legs. We've just really started promoting it. You know, that article that you referenced earlier, that was only from November, but it definitely seems like there's a lot of interest in this kind of thing. Bart was actually, he never talks about this kind of thing, but he was actually invited to GDC. And so he spoke at GDC in California. So that's the Game Developers Conference.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's like one of the biggest events in game dev.
Wow.
And they have an education portion. And so he spoke on a panel. You know, there's more and more interest in sustainable gaming and green gaming. You know, our world is pretty academic. You know, we do run out of a university, but there is a huge push from, you know, the AAA gaming world. You know, Microsoft, who owns, as we know, Minecraft, this is something on their radar, and it has to be. And so, you know, there is a lot of room for this to take off and develop into something pretty substantial.
I hope it does take off, and hopefully this episode will make a little bit more awareness of it too. And so how much, or do you know how much it costs to, I don't know, approximately how much it costs to construct one of these units?
We've had that. I thought Bart would be here to answer it.
Yeah.
I want to say it's less than $1,000 Canadian.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about an estimate, but 1,000 or no more than 2,000, you would say, probably?
It shouldn't be more because like
more.
the mini PC is like this big. It's not that huge.
Just a few
and
inches.
Like the
Square
CPU,
inches.
I believe it's either the CPU or the graphics card. It's like that big.
Okay.
And the main problem that they were facing like last fall was trying to find. I'm gonna say if it was a CPU, but trying to find a CPU that would actually fit within the box, or like that would connect to the motherboard, because it's all like. Since we're trying to reduce the size of the battery, trying to reduce all the price tag of everything, it's to make it more accessible. And if we used our high-end gear, not only would having infinite power be like playing it normally, but it would just make it completely inaccessible to people who maybe their town or city only has one generator, or maybe they all work together to, you know, have this server, and it just won't be accessible to them at all.
Super cool. And $1,000, that's really not much. I mean, in the long run, you'd recoup those costs from energy, I imagine. I mean, maybe over a long, long time, but still, no, that's really neat. And that was one of my questions. How much would you estimate that this? Well, you just answered about $1,000, but I was going to ask, like, you guys don't know how much energy over long-term SunBloc saves, do you, compared to regular just infrastructure gaming on the regular energy grid?
I don't think we have that data yet.
Gotcha.
We would that's we're going to find out in the spring when we release it.
No, that's a. I'm sure that would be hard to get that type of data, anyways, just because there's a lot of gaming going on around the world. I don't know how you would quantify that. I'm curious. Bart mentioned that there were some European companies, and that seems to be the only, just a few companies, it sounds like, that are looking into sustainable gaming. Are you guys pioneering this essentially, or as a research group, or are there other research teams out there looking at tackling issues in this manner?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's like a pretty hot topic right now. There's a push. I mean, there's a push, but there's also like, greenwashing is just so easy to do. Like, it's so easy to say that you're a sustainable company, but what that means is you're buying carbon credits, or what that means is that you're planting trees for every, X amount of copies of something sold. And so something that was semi-adjacent to the SunBloc project is in the fall, we had a course offered through the university on eco gaming. And a big, one of the crux of that course was what does that mean? What is eco gaming? Is eco gaming, is it a game about saving the rainforest? Or is it, a game that runs on something that is powered sustainably? Or is it a combination of those things? And that's something that we explored over the course of the semester, and we don't really have an answer for it. But what we're trying to do with our project isn't so much, we are not under the illusion that we're going to revolutionize gaming. We're not expecting all the server farms to suddenly go solar powered or wind powered or whatever. But what we're trying to do is like break down that wall that's between the player and the material reality of their gaming. Like, it's so easy to just, like Bart said, you don't think about the server. You don't think about, I don't think about the energy, or I didn't think about the power that, the PC draws or the PlayStation draws. And so what we're trying to do is just like put it in people's faces a little bit, and see what happens when faced with like what players do when they're faced with that information. Like, it's entirely possible that we're going to get people who are playing on our SMP who just fly all the time and want to kick it into performance mode all the time, and they want to drain the battery, and we're not really trying to stop them. What we're trying to do is just see what happens, and see what kind of choices people make when they do have that kind of information available to them.
I see. I have a quick question about the people that do play on this SMP. Are these random people, or these other researchers that you get from the university? How do you carry out those experiments?
So we haven't officially launched our SMP yet, but we do want to mix. We've had some tag people testing, like doing some preliminary testing, but we're going to be launching publicly the SMP in May.
In May? Okay, let's get into the SMP. It is time for that. Let's see here. And it's called Gaia's Riddle. And I did want to ask this question first, just because since SunBloc One is right there, do you design mod packs like Gaia's Riddle using SunBloc One's energy? Or is this, when you design these mod packs, is this designed separate from that energy source?
Do you want to fill that one, Quinn, or you want me to say?
Yeah, I mean, when you say design it from that, like we're not using the mini PC to choose the mod packs, but the mod pack is being like used for that PC. So we're trying to not, because it's very easy with mod packs to say, oh, I like these 300 mods. I'm going to just include all of them into my mod pack, and I'm going to pray really hardly that it works. We can't do that because at a certain point, there's too much is too much,
Mm-hmm.
and if we're trying to stick to the theme of keeping it with environmental, we're choosing mods that have pollution, choosing mods that have tornadoes, choosing mods that have temperature, and ways to combat these and ways to like move around it while still being within like the modded experience of the vanilla Minecraft. And so it's really a curated experience, not just we're going to have a fun time with everything, we're going to have a specific fun time with this idea in mind.
No, that's really interesting. Could you tell me the general theme to Gaia's Riddle?
The
What
general
was it about?
theme, it's well, the player starts off in an upside down house,
Oh wow,
and you have to
that's cool.
navigate it a little bit because you start off in this really dark area,
A little
and
Wizard of
as
Oz.
a little Wizard
Okay,
of Oz,
is
you
that what
you
I
make your
think?
way out and you realize, oh, this area has just been struck by a tornado.
Oh,
And
neat.
as you pick up some clues on the ground, you find some journals, and you see that there is this one area in the world that is somewhat safe of these tornadoes. And so you make your way from A to B. You, in this process of going like 1,000 blocks away, you encounter the day and night cycle. You fight off mobs. You get a taste of the performance mode versus power saver mode. And when you finally reach the destination, you're faced with the question: do you want to set up your base here in this area that's somewhat safe for tornadoes for you don't know however long, or do you want to go off on your own direction where anything can happen? And so it's this communal versus self. Do you want to be part of the group? Do you want to go on like away with yourself? And in order to get people to care about like what happens to the group, they have to be caring about being inside of the group. And
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to include by having these events that we're creating and all these experiences. And so that's like the general like 10-week goal.
That is neat. And you say this is going to be open to the public in May, so
Yes.
that means anybody can get on and play this, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah,
And
you
so
can
for
play.
sure we're gonna have people, as Rosie said, just doing whatever they want, going millions of blocks away and
Yeah.
just building a base. And of course we're gonna have people maybe following the notes, setting up a house in the little safe area and interacting with us, talking and building
That
and giving us their ideas.
is neat. And so that will all be through SunBloc One, right? Just that,
Yeah,
and that's off one solar panel.
that's one solar panel, yeah.
And so, how many people could be in this SMP world at once? Theoretically, I
I
guess.
saw a
Before it
number
starts
online.
breaking down.
It was like 20 players for every 1 gigabyte. That's a rough number that
Okay.
like we have allocated to the actual thing. So we don't know how many people will want to join. On
Dang.
a good day, we'll say 100. On a great day, we'll say 1,000 people. But if
Uh-huh.
there's 40 individuals that around the world want to join us, we'll take them and
Yeah.
we'll share the experience with them.
Wow. That's exciting. I bet you guys are both excited for this
Yeah.
launch, right?
Hmm.
I so when let's say 20 people come onto your SMP, 20 strangers potentially from around the world are going to have to put their minds together to conserve energy. Otherwise, if the battery runs up or runs out of energy, then the game's over, right?
Yeah.
It just shuts off.
It'll
Yeah,
shut off.
until it recharges the next day and then it pops back up.
Okay. And okay, here's a question. Does it save where you were at if when it shuts off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have to
That was something we thought about. We were like, should we make it hardcore where it just wipes so you have to always keep the battery up?
That's a
But
great. That would have been intriguing.
it would
That would
have.
have been very intriguing.
We'll do like
Something
a mini season of hardcore.
So please tell me, how long have you guys been developing this Gaia's Riddle
since last fall, like September.
of
Hmm.
2024?
2024, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And both.
or yeah, the summer maybe. I feel like so the school year starts in in September, and technically we're research assistants on this project through the school. But I think Quinn and I were sending each other
Yeah.
messages in the summer, like, I know technically we're not allowed to work on this yet, but
But
I have this idea. Wouldn't it be cool? Blah,
And-
blah, blah.
And so you, Rosie and Quinn, you both developed this storyline then, what just you two, and put the mods together and everything. Did you, Quinn, you mentioned you've been in the Minecraft world for what, 10 years
a
or
while.
so?
Yeah, I mean, we've both been playing the game for a long time.
Okay. So Rosie, you've been playing for quite a while too.
Nowhere near as much. Actually, earlier in the interview, Bart mentioned the course, that the Minecraft course that's run at our school. I took that course in 2021, and that was the first time I had ever played
Wow.
Minecraft, which is wild to me to think that I've only been playing for 4 years, and it is such a huge part of my life now.
Yeah.
So I felt hard for this video game.
What was it like your first night playing?
Oh gosh. I mean, I was pretty terrified the first day. Like, I remember logging into the class server for the first time, and a friend of mine was in the class, and they'd already played before, so they were leading me around. So I had a little bit of help. But I remember like hearing a skeleton for the first time and typing in the chat, like, what was that? What was that weird xylophone sound? But this just sort of underlines what I was saying earlier about how fascinating an online community of people can be, because I joined the class late. The server had already been up for about a week, and a lot of the more advanced players and students had decided to set up this really incredible spawn. There was a lot of farms. There was like a little tutorial area. There was just a big building that said, "Hey, come here and get stuff." They had built an amphitheater.
Oh, wow.
So, there were people in the class who were, hardcore old heads, and it was a heavily modded server too. So it was a really intense thing for me to learn on.
I'm sure.
But, I think it was the perfect space for me to learn in, because I had so many great people to learn from. And I don't know if I would have seen that side of the game or seen the potential of the game if I hadn't learned to play in that environment.
Interesting. So what made you two come up with the theme of this story for Gaia's Riddle? And obviously Gaia means earth, correct? Or was that a goddess? Or I can't remember my Greek.
I think it was Greek mythology. She was like Mother Nature, Gaia. Yeah. And it's really it was from inspiration from the mods that we had. A lot of it was ideas of how gameplay should be. Should we restrict gameplay only to the overworld? Should we add access to the nether? Should we let people go to the end of the game and kill the dragon? And we decided, you know what, let's hold off the pause hold off the end, just exactly why Rosie said, like, as soon as she started the game, people were already building insane stuff. When I joined the class last year, I was one of those people who, I knew what I was doing. I didn't care about anything else. It was me. I wanted to be the person to kill the dragon.
Yeah.
And by playing that first day for like 3 hours straight, I found through some intermediation of my professor, Darren Werschler at the time, he said, "Hey, I see you're online. You're doing great. Would you be interested in being like a leadership person for like everybody else when they come on for all the new people?" And he gave me like direction of a goal of, I'm no longer going to be the best player on the server. I'm just going to help out all the new people that have no clue what they're playing. And for the mods that we have, all like we had boss fights and all these things, all these like challenges for people to face, and all of these new ways of playing with, of course, pollution. Like normally in the game, you would smelt some ores to make a better pickaxe, make a better sword. But the process of doing this pollutes the water, pollutes the air. If you breathe it, you get some negative effects. You could become nauseous. You get poisoned. So we have temperature. If you're too cold, you freeze to death. If you're too hot, you start burning. And so all of these new areas of playing kind of framed how we wanted to just incite the players into the game was, hey, uh, we're going to hold your hand until a point, but these are what you need to really focus on, because without it, you're just going to be dying for no reason. You won't understand why.
Yeah.
But at the same time, do what you got to do.
Yeah, the weather mod that we use is really fantastic. Like, they've done an incredible job. This is the one that has tornadoes. It has rainstorms.
Who built it, if I may ask?
Oh gosh,
I believe their name is Corrosus. Corrosu
nice.
or Corrosus. I can find it.
Were they with your university?
No. This is an individual developer somewhere out in the world.
Gotcha.
They've done an amazing job.
But so the tornadoes are really affecting when you know we also use the biome generation mod. Oh, the biomes we've gone, which is just stunning. Like, it's visually beautiful. Okay. And then this giant tornado sweeps across the land and shreds all the trees, and then there's just dirt underneath, and it's gutting. But the weather mod includes a really cheap block that you can craft that is like a weather deflector. And so it protects, I think it's like a 100 block area.
100, 150, yeah.
Yeah, you like plunk this block down and then you're safe. And so really early on, we found with playing with this mod, the tornadoes just weren't an issue anymore. And so we thought, well, that's kind of less interesting. So why don't we make it so we took that block out. We made the block uncraftable, and we're making it so we're just placing some of those weather deflectors in one part of the map. Okay. That is the safe place. And so, if people don't want to risk their hard work getting torn up by a tornado, that's where they can build. And so what we're playing with a lot here is, like the real multiplayer side of things. Like, how can we get people to work together? Do we want people to work together? Are they going to do so reluctantly? Are they going to enjoy it? Like, are we going to build communal farms? Could this be an allegory for real life?
Yeah.
Do we need to work together to survive the solar apocalypse? We'll find out.
To me, it almost seems like you're promoting or creating an atmosphere to cultivate altruism or people coming together to solve issues. So I think that's really neat. What is the main goal of Gaia's Riddle? Did you already just say it? Is that what you're wanting, people to learn cooperation? Or
the main goal of SunBloc is to make people think differently about playing the game. The main goal about Gaia's Riddle is to just do that, to play differently. It's not we're telling you what to do, but we're giving you the choice, because it's very possible somebody joins the world and instead of running towards the safe place, they just go in the other direction. They completely don't read anything. They don't take any hints or any clues. They just say, oh, this is cool, I'm going to go play over there, and they do their own thing. That's cool. That's their decision. The alternative is you work together and you communicate with everybody, because what can easily happen is on a very nice sunny day, everybody hops on and they all play at the same time. Let's say 20 people play at the same time and they're all flying around. The battery drains in 3 hours. Yeah. And then they realize, oh, guys, we did this and we can't play for the next 18 hours of the day until sun's back up, charges, and we're back on. And they do this again and they play for 3 hours, drains the battery, and it happens. After a while, we'll see if they come to a decision where, okay, maybe we stagger it. We only play for 30 minutes and we hop off. Maybe they create a solar economy where they say, you have 30 minutes of sunshine. You can play more if it's charging rather than playing late at nights. Or maybe let's all save up the power while it's charging. When it's at its peak, that's when we hop on. So the goal is not playing the game and killing the dragon or building a really nice house or defeating all the bosses in the game. The goal is making the community something of a cohesive unit that can really make decisions with itself, and I like that. Just seeing that dialogue evolve.
For me, I feel like if we get someone who joins the server, plays for 2 days, and then says, you know what, this is not for me and this is why, I consider that a win. Yeah. That's I feel like a stereotype, but that's data.
That's data.
That's if this project, it turns out to be too frustrating for people, I've learned something. You know, if it turns out that all of the Montreal players drain the battery and then someone logs in from the UK when it's, you know,
It'd probably be the Americans that
that's
drained the battery.
you know,
Could be all of us.
be
Could be all of
surprised.
us.
Okay, yeah. No, so Rosie, what is it that you do want to gain from this personally, this project?
Oh gosh. I just want to have fun. I really like playing games online with people. I think it's really rewarding. I think it's just a total blast. You know, when we were doing some testing of the mod pack, we would go out on these little group excursions. You know, we'd go find a cave somewhere, and it's just a hoot. And being able to have that just great gameplay experience while also thinking critically about something that you love, like video games, I find that so rewarding. Like, I love picking video games apart. I love picking stories apart. I love picking media apart. I like you know, picking things apart is my love language. You know, like if I'm criticizing a game, it's because I think it's worth it.
Yeah, no, I can relate with you. And you, Quinn.
Yeah, I'd love to get some great conversations in the chat. You know, I
think you guys are going to have some amazing conversations through this. Honestly, I think you're going to have a big turnout too. I saw that Gaia's whoever made it did a great job. You have it up. It says Gaia's riddle in kind of an orange. I thought I had it on my screen here. I don't anymore. I must have closed out of it. But no, who designed that whole?
Yeah, that was I did it. It wasn't that hard. It's through an application called Blockbench, and I learned about it at a Minecraft summit I went to in November. And they just said that, hey, use this. This is something that all of the professionals do on all of the YouTube videos. And I was like, that makes so much more sense.
Was that Smith Summit?
That was the Smith Summit.
Okay,
yeah.
I read your article on that.
Oh, thank you.
No, that was a well-written article. I enjoyed reading that.
Yeah, but so yeah, it was exactly as I wrote it. It was both intellectual and entertaining at the same time, which is something I never thought would happen in Minecraft. That's what I want from this, because I find, as much as I have learned from this project, going through that 1 week process of hitting all of those panels, and like it's as if you went there in person, but you're in the game, and you'd be sitting down watching somebody on this makeshift screen on a screen present their PowerPoint, and they talk to you about a whole array of different things. And it was just the idea of forming a community that wanted to help each other grow, because the whole aspect of data packs is like somewhat new to Minecraft. Modding has been there since 2012, I would say, even earlier. Back when like Minecraft, the 1.6.4 was the deal, and now we're in 1.20.4 or something.
Oh gosh,
2024 or something.
Yeah, we're way up there. They just came out with spring release.
Like, exactly. So in terms of like modding legacy and data pack legacy, the data packers on that summit, they really created this atmosphere of, hey, we're doing something big and we want you a part of it. And that's what I want to. I want to be able to tell a good story. I want to be able to make people want to play. And yeah, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I'd like to get you guys back on the show after this comes out publicly, so you can discuss your findings, and just after you get some data. I think it'd be fascinating to hear how it turns out and what you've learned from it and everything, because this is all just super fascinating. I had no idea, like I said at the beginning of the show, that there was a place on Earth that combined academics, research with Minecraft. So discovering all this is just kind of mind-blowing, honestly. I don't think a lot of people really do know about this, so I'm glad to get it out there. I did have a question about, I heard of a SunBloc 2. Is that something that's being developed?
It's in the works.
Behind the scenes.
Okay.
We've got I think Bart spray painted the case for it last week.
Oh, nice. Okay, so it's being assembled then.
Yes, yeah.
Gotcha.
We don't have that many details about it. At least I don't. Rosie,
Mhm.
you might know something more than me, but it's still, we're gonna focus on SunBloc One. When that run is over, then we're focusing on SunBloc Two.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
we're all like we're all really excited about this project. It's pretty infectious, and I know that we're still sort of in the mindset of like optimizing. And so I know Bart and Jerome are looking up like, ooh, new solar panels are on sale. Ooh, these batteries are on sale. Ooh, should I buy this? Ooh, this, this graphics card is on sale. This case is on sale. And so it's really hard not to just like keep going. And like, ooh,
Yeah.
this is for SunBloc 2. When SunBloc 1 is just like, come on, man. It's the kid in the pool. It's just like, we haven't even launched yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, we want to like I mean, I guess I could have mentioned this when you asked earlier about the DIY aspect of it and the possibility of other sunblocks getting built out there is like what we'd love to do down the line is something similar to the solar protocol that Bart was mentioning earlier, which is have, a network of solar powered Minecraft servers. We'd love to have people building them all over the world so that, when it is bright and sunny in the UK, that's peak hours and that's when the server is live, and then or when it's in Madrid or something, like we'd love to have them peppered around and sort of like sharing the load.
I love that. And when he mentioned about those Raspberry Pis in that project that you just mentioned, I never heard of that project before. And wow, that's just so ingenious. So yeah, I think that, I see where you guys are going, or where you guys are going with that statement is creating some sort of network is just, that's a genius idea, honestly. I did want to ask you, coming to the conclusion of the show, and I had a few questions for Bart, but I don't think he's coming back on this episode. But maybe you could answer this. What's in store for Tag Lab's future? Is it just going to keep expanding? Just keep going?
That's the dream. I mean, Tag is sort of like a bigger, sort of like our big umbrella. There's a lot of people involved with Tag. There's people who are building, making board games. There's people who are making tabletop games. There are people who are, working in VR. They're making sculptures. There's and a lot of incredible projects coming out of Tag. A lot of residencies and partnerships. Our crew, like our little wedge of it, is the Minecraft Bloc. And that has, that's what the SunBloc came out of. That's what the previous SMP, public SMP that we had, which was called the Fun Palace. That's what that came out of. And so, we're always coming up with something new. This is what we're focused on right now, but they also Bart and another professor who is heavily involved in the project, Darren Werschler, they're really encouraging of student-led research. And so actually Quinn and I are involved in a separate Minecraft research project on the side.
Okay.
Which is sort of like tangentially involved with the course that's running right now. So the Minecraft course. So we're RAs on that project as well. So there's always things sort of like bubbling up and overlapping. And
wow. May I ask what the project is?
Oh gosh, how do we explain it?
It's we're making an experience within an experience. So it's this whole idea of Minecraft as a way of teaching that not many people think of when you think of learning with video games. You normally think of Minecraft education, like the Microsoft published one. But we're saying we're trying to push forward this idea that Minecraft is something that can belong in a classroom, although it is not the way you learn through it is not where you're face sitting like the professor just in this one-dimensional class. You're in this three-dimensional area. You have agency. You can move around, and we're building a panorama inside of it. So it'll be an experience that you can. We haven't really decided on what it'll take shape as, but it'll be some sort of experience within the game that it goes along with the research that the class is currently doing. So if you'll read about this Parisian street that talks about why lights are important for policing at nights, or why they created the first panorama in the 19th century, that's cool and all if you're reading in a classroom, but then you go home and you experience it in the game, and maybe you'll learn something better. Maybe by actually hearing the tram go by, you'll think of, wow, so they can hear this while they're inside the building. Or maybe by walking down the street at sunset while the Eiffel Tower's in the distance, you see, oh, this, it gives me a little bit of a different perspective.
Interesting.
And so it's that third dimensional of learning that we're looking for.
Is that the allegorical build, or is am I mistaken there?
Yeah, that's part of it.
Part of
it. Okay.
Yeah,
I was reading
the course itself is called Video Games and as Theory, Minecraft and Modernity.
Wow.
And so it's an English course about modernity in Minecraft.
Super interesting.
It's wild.
I could have you guys come back to the show just to talk about that. Honestly, that sounds really interesting.
We have a lot to say about it.
I'm sure. No, I was looking at the university. Just seems like a really great university in general, and just so what is it? Concordia University, Milieux Institute, Tag Lab, and you are the MindBloc team.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. It's like feels like one of those Russian.
It's a lot of umbrellas.
And okay. So no, super fascinating. I just wanted to just clear that up real quick. And before I let you guys go, I did want to ask this. Rosie and Quinn, what are your future plans after you finish your graduate course, or after you leave MindBloc?
That's coming up for me really soon.
Is it?
Yeah, when I joined the Darren Worshler's class last year, that was supposed to be my last year.
Oh.
So in April 15th, Bart was having his talk in the Tag Lab. I walked in, and he gave this hour-long speech, and I was just so inspired. I was like, this is something I want to do.
Oh,
I will take extra courses just to be in Tag, just to be in the Minecraft block. I like these guys. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
And so that's what I did. I extended it by a year. I took on a minor. And now I'm coming to the end of that. I'm thinking it's either I stick around just like hovering on the sidelines trying to like put input of
grad school.
or I do grad school. I've been having a lot of input for grad school too. So it's like that's the idea, or it's I just branch off and do my own thing somewhere in the ether of the world, which wouldn't be following the dream, but would be just parallel to it, I guess.
I feel like you'll do well with your studies. And I guess I didn't realize this MindBloc is open to undergrads as well. Okay. Yeah. That's super cool. That's super cool. And you earned your minor in this?
No, I earned my minor in real estate, which is completely left field.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Well, no, super handy though. And Rosie, what about you? What do you plan on doing?
Oh, that's such a hard question. I had a really similar experience to Quinn in that I was introduced to all of this Minecraft research stuff during my undergrad at Concordia. And then I graduated, and I actually got pulled back in for the Fun Palace, which I had mentioned. They'd reached out to some former students and said, hey, do you want to play? And so I came back on and really got hooked. And I wanted to be more involved, but I couldn't because I wasn't a student. Oh. So Bart and Darren were actually like, hey, have you considered doing a master's?
Oh, wow.
And I said, you know what? Yeah, why not? Let's do it. So Bart graciously agreed to be my supervisor. So I'm here doing a 2-year master's program. Just finished my first year and all my coursework. So
awesome.
Next year is going to be all doing my thesis. And who knows, maybe there's a PhD out there for me.
Nice.
Maybe this will be what it takes to, break into a new career. I don't really want to look that far ahead right now because I'm really enjoying where I am right now.
No, I don't blame you. Is your master's, is it focused in sociology?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool. No, I just wanted to find out how much longer you guys had and what your plans were. And no, it sounds like you have a really great department, and sounds like Dr. Simon and Werschler, right? Did they co-found?
Yeah.
Were they co-founders? They sound like they're great professors. Just I could see that from the websites I read and some of the YouTube videos that I saw.
Yeah.
Super. I was like, these
They're
are going to
really
be
fun.
some fun people to talk to today. So
Yeah.
how could it not be if a whole department's playing Minecraft?
And that was a big shock. Like, I took the Minecraft class as an elective, and I didn't know it was about Minecraft. It said video games and as theory. I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
It seems interesting. I walk in, they say Minecraft, and I'm like, I've been bred for this. I know what I'm doing.
That is super cool. I'd like to ask if you want to come back on to Realm News in the future. I'd be more than willing and honored to have you all back on to talk about Gaia's Riddle and some. I would like to even talk about past projects such as that Fun Palace that you mentioned. I didn't realize that you were part of that, Rosie, or got in on that. I'd like to hear about all those projects as well, just because, like I said, there's just so much I could cover here from all the research you've all done, your team in the past. It's just in all the papers. I tried reading the allegorical build. I downloaded the PDF, and I was like, I just don't have time to do it this week. I tried cramming it in, and I was like, yeah, well, maybe another episode.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you could, for me, pass on, tell Dr. Simon that I really appreciate his time that he provided to the show. It was great to have him on when he was able to, and I'd love to have him back on as well if he's willing to. Do you guys have anything else you would like to say before we wrap this up?
Thank you for having us. This was an amazing opportunity to help, show what we're working on in SunBloc One and Gaia's Riddle.
And keep up the good work, guys. It's honestly, I think this is amazing because first off, I see it. I'm not going to get political, but my nation has done everything wants to destroy the environment now. And so I think work and research like this, I know it's not really the goal to be sustainable energy here. That's not the goal, but I think that is going to make an impact regardless. And I think that's just for the positive, and everything about this project, SunBloc One, and everything surrounding it, or what's came into the being from SunBloc One and before it, I think is just all super beneficial to humanity and the research you're doing. So it was an honor to have you all on here, honestly.
It was our pleasure.
Well, thank you for your time so much. Thank you. And hopefully I see you back on the show soon.
Yeah, I hope so.
For sure.
I'll see you guys. Bye.
All right, take care.
Bye.